What if you already have everything you need to build a compliance program that actually protects and grows your business? In this episode, Ross reveals the game-changing difference between having compliance documents and creating a compliance program that truly works for your organization. He shares the compliance essential flywheel that transforms how you think about building effective programs, walking you through each phase from discovery to leadership that turns compliance into your strategic advantage. You'll learn exactly which elements to focus on first to jumpstart real cultural change, discover how to make your existing policies come alive in daily operations, and understand why most healthcare leaders are closer to compliance success than they realize. This episode will help you activate what you already have and turn your compliance investment into the business growth enabler it was designed to be.
Welcome to the Compliance Advantage podcast. This is where healthcare executives transform compliance from a burden into a strategic asset that drives both growth and peace of mind. I'm your host, Ross Ronan, founder of Ronan Healthcare Compliance and a healthcare compliance strategist with nearly 30 years of industry experience. I'll help you stay ahead of evolving regulations while building the sustainable, compliant organization that lets you focus on high-level strategy and exceptional patient outcomes. Remember, compliance pays dividends. Invest today. Welcome to the Compliance Advantage. Today, we're going to be talking about pillar number 2, which is the essentials, activating over assembly, powering up your compliance program. Last week, we talked about the first pillar, which was the investment, building before the storm. Make sure you listen to that because I think it's a really insightful information about how a company needs to invest in it.
All right. So when someone says we have a compliance program, what do they usually mean and what's often missing?
Well, they usually mean that they have some documents and a binder that they've put on a shelf, right? And I hear this a lot. We have a compliance program, and I say, show it to me. And then they pull it off the shelf and dust it off and say, here it is. It was created about 7 years ago, and this is what we use. Well, guess what? Documents alone do not reduce risk, period, end of story. The program only works when it's actually being used, tested, and reinforced. It has to do something. It can't just sit on a shelf. It's the difference between really owning a gym and actually training in one of them. Only one of those is going to actually create change and make things work.
That is such a good analogy. And going on for talking about another analogy, is there a film that reminds you of what happens when you have all the right pieces but still aren't protected?
You know, I love the film and I love the problem-solving film. One of my favorites is Iron Man. And I think the biggest part of Iron Man that I take away from the standpoint of a compliance and a compliance program, and it's a little sad that I think about this way. And when I talk about films, I think about compliance, but is this cave scene, right? Where Tony Stark is he just got blown up from shrapnel and now he's in the cave and they're making him build a weapon, right? They want the Jericho missile weapon and they want him to go build it. Well, all the bad guys had all of the parts they needed to build the weapon, plus the Iron Man suit that he actually ends up building. So it's not really about having all the parts it needs to be able to put a compliance program in place. It's about how you're going to put them together and use them. He activated all the necessary materials. He had the leadership and the experience to put them together and make it work. And he escaped from the cave. It's a great example of having all the parts necessary, but needing that kind of leadership and understanding to make it work. You know, many healthcare leaders, they have policies and procedures, they have standards, they even have integrity to say, this is how we're going to do it. These are the pieces that Tony Stark had in the cave, but without that right compliance leader or functionality, they're all just going to remain policies and procedures, SOPs, and different cultural things that don't really connect. So making them connect and work is the real kind of special sauce when it comes to compliance. And it's really how Iron Man put his suit together and really escaped that cave and became a wonderful superhero.
We've got a flywheel within our business that you created called the Compliance Essentials. Can you walk us through what each part means and why it needs to be activated in sequence?
Yeah, the flywheel that we created really is the core aspect of how you should really establish a compliance program and is the basis behind the essentials. First and foremost, it starts with the discover phase. And the discover piece of it is really doing a risk assessment and gaps analysis. Where are we seeing that there are holes in our compliance programs? Where do we see that there are risks within the organization that are not being addressed? And really documenting that and figuring out what needs to happen next, which then transforms into our next category, which is create. This is where you create the infrastructure of the compliance program. You're building out the policies and procedures. You're building out the training and education, your audit program, your disclosure program, all the 7 elements that the government is asking you to put together, which do flow very well together and create an effective compliance program. But that's really your infrastructure about what the compliance program should be, how it should operate, and this is where you create the scalability of the compliance program so that it can grow within the organization. The next one is operationalizing it. This is actually driving the car, right? When you think about creating and you think about it in a car situation, this is really where you're putting all the elements in your car and putting it together. Well, operationalizing your compliance program, now that you have this infrastructure of a program built like you have a car, you got to put gas in it and you got to get in, you got to drive it. This is where you make the compliance program work and also transforms from a reactive compliance program to a proactive compliance program. This is where you start looking under rocks and underneath the water or the surface area to see what's lying underneath so that you can prevent, detect, and mitigate things from happening. Documents and the infrastructure don't do it alone, right? It takes somebody, something to make it go and make it run. That leads into communication. And once you've built this, you're actually operationalizing, you're driving this car. How do you communicate with the people that need to know what's going on within the organization, within the compliance department? This is where communication is key. A lot of people feel, and a lot of healthcare leaders feel, that compliance should be confidential and in the background and behind closed doors, and they're only reacting when something happens versus being proactive and being out there. The reality of it is your compliance program should be transparent to the things that are happening within the organization. Now, there are things that are out there that are attorney-client privilege and should be confidential and should be protected. I fully appreciate that and understand that. But the idea behind a compliance program is total communication. That's communication not only from the employees, contractors, and vendors of an organization, but from the compliance program to the executive team, to the board of directors, and making sure that the information that's being said is clear, concise, and complete. And it's really not a bunch of stuff that nobody needs to know.
This episode of the Compliance Advantage podcast is brought to you by Ronan Healthcare Compliance. At Ronan Healthcare Compliance, we believe in transforming healthcare compliance from a checkbox attitude to a strategic advantage. With decades of expertise, our team of consultants provides innovative solutions tailored to your organization's unique needs. We don't just help you meet your standards. We elevate your business, ensuring ethical practices are at the heart of what you do. Whether you're navigating complex regulations or seeking to enhance your compliance strategy, Ronan Healthcare Compliance is your partner in achieving excellence in healthcare compliance. Ronan Healthcare Compliance, redefining compliance, empowering leadership. Visit us at ronanhc.com to learn more. Now, back to the show.
Lastly, we call it lead. This is where the compliance executive really stands up as a strategic partner and not only running the compliance program, making sure it's operationalized and making sure that it's transparent, but it's also how do you sit beside the CEO? How do you help them grow the business in a compliant manner? And how are you proactive with the discussions that you have so that you're not cleaning things up later, which can put a big setback into any growth of an organization. So really the lead comes down to being the steady partner as the compliance executive. First, it starts off with strategy. Are you a strategic partner? Yes, no. How do you become strategic within your organization? Next is transparency. Are you communicating, like we said before, the things that are clear and concise? And are you making sure the right people know what is going on? Evaluation. Are you evaluating yourself, your staff, and what the compliance program needs on an ongoing basis? Are you constantly upgrading and evaluating your situation? Adaptability. This is really where the compliance executive can adapt to whatever the business needs are to ensure that the compliance program is being proactive and going down the growth roads that the company is headed. And if you're able to adapt to those situations, then the company continues to be protected. The next one is documentation. This is really documenting everything you've done. A good compliance, a good steady compliance leader is going to be able to show you all the steps that they did in making a decision and being able to essentially reconstruct those in an event that they need to. The last one is yield. And what do I mean by yield? Is there a yield in your organization, or are you providing some sort of benefit to the organization, a compliance advantage, so that it does yield a positive message to the organization? The flywheel just doesn't reduce exposure, it creates a culture and it spins. It always should be spinning. You always should be going down this road, every compliance program. And ultimately, it's to prevent, detect, and mitigate things from happening.
What if you're talking to a team that's already built most of the parts? Like, what's the biggest risk they still face if those parts aren't powered up?
No, it's the illusion of safety. You think you have all the pieces together and you think you're being protected, but in reality, it's not. The risk lies between we have it and we actually use it. And if you're using it, then that risk gets reduced. The danger isn't missing a policy. The danger is missing the muscle memory to be able to use that policy, right? And so make sure you focus on how to use it and not just the fact that you have it.
What would you say is a more strategic way for a leader to begin activating their compliance program, not just from policy, but from a leadership or team culture perspective?
When you're building a compliance program, there's a lot of elements to it. Just pick one. Don't pick the most complex one. Just pick one that you find that can help jumpstart the program and create a culture. There's the top three that we always want to start with. First is leadership, making sure you have that, executive compliance committee and the different people to oversee the compliance functionality, or your disclosure program. This is the window into the company. This is where the employees can talk about things and come to the compliance program, which they know will go up to executive leadership or the board. So pick one, or the auditing and monitoring program. Pick one of those categories. Go all in on it and create that culture that says we care and we are going to set this apart. And this is how we're going to start. You don't have to eat the elephant, right? Different pieces will actually make a huge difference if you just focus on it. Then you can layer on things like training and education, additional policies and procedures, and kind of reinforcing the actions that are out there. It'll all come in time. But if you focus on one of the big three, disclosure program, leadership, or auditing and monitoring, it will actually come into place really well.
And lastly, what message do you want healthcare leaders to really hear when it comes to the essentials?
99% of the organizations, you have what you need. It's there. It just needs to be activated, needs to be put into place. And it's not, the essentials are not about having everything perfected and in perfection. It's all about execution. If you can execute the different pieces of the puzzle, which you have, we all know that you have, right? And if you're talking to anybody in compliance, then you know that you want it, and you know that, you care and you have integrity. So, if compliance is not living in your day-to-day operations, then it's not protecting you. Yeah, most organizations that are leaders in compliance don't wait around or ask for permission. They just do it and they activate it currently. So take the step. Get out there and put all those pieces together. You already have the parts. Put them together, make them work, and make them operate. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Compliance Advantage podcast. If you enjoyed it, please rate, review, and share this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Don't forget to visit us at ronanhc.com for more resources and connect with us on social media for the latest updates. And remember, compliance pays dividends. Invest today.